Welcome to Avritt's Academy, the broadcast dedicated to Christian educators in the home and in the classroom. My name is Katherine Avritt. Today we're going to go over a brand new lesson entitled When Helping Turns into Hurting. Thank you for joining us this week. Thank you to all of those who have subscribed to listen to my podcast on our various different platforms. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the likes and the comments. Thank you for following me and for listening to my teachings. I hope that I'm able to be a help to you and to others as well. We are going to discuss today when helping becomes hurting. Now, I know we're not supposed to share what we did wrong and tell you all of the things that I made mistakes on, but this is a lesson that I learned the hard way. My first year teaching, I just remember that I wanted to be a teacher so badly, and all the years of preparing for college, and then you finally get your first teaching job, and of course you're young and you're inexperienced, but you somehow think that you know everything that there is to know and that you are going to change the world and make a difference in your classroom, and every kid's going to get straight A's, and you're going to be the best teacher ever, and you're going to be their favorite teacher, and their grades are just going to be impeccable, and you have all of these high hopes, and then reality hits. And because you have all of these high hopes and you want them to excel and you want them to do so well, you end up helping them, but your help goes beyond the point of help and it goes to a hindrance and to hurting them. So I'm just going to tell you a few things, just give you a few tips of how you can stop yourself from doing that. Now, as teachers, and as parents, we do this in hopes of trying to help them, and we want to see them succeed, and we don't want to see them fail. So I don't think that we hurt them on purpose. It comes from a place of love, and it comes from a place of wanting to see them do their very best and be their very best. But in the long run, it is not the best. And I made this mistake my first year teaching, and I was like, by the end of the year, I thought, what is wrong with these students? How come they can't do anything by themselves? And then I realized, wait, I'm the problem. So here's just a few tips that I have learned and when helping becomes hurting. Number one, we shouldn't do something for students that they can do for themselves. Now there are many reasons why a teacher would do something for a student. And this isn't just black and white, never ever do something for a student they could do for themselves. But if we repeatedly get in the habit of helping students and in ways that they can help themselves, and I'll give you some examples in a moment, it cripples them and it allows them to not be able to have knowledge that they should have. Now, you of course should help them out if they're struggling, if they need help. There's a time and place for it, which I think is a learned skill. So what are some things that we should never do for students if they can do for themselves? One, because I taught junior high for so many years, is lockers. So sometimes they come in and they have no idea how to open their locker and they're late to class because they can't get their locker open. And so many times they ask you, can you use the key? Can you open it up for me? And I'll just say yes. And then here we are in March. They've been in school for how many months and they don't know how to open their locker. If you were to take the time and show them how to open their locker, or, this is the hard part because you want them to excel and you want them to succeed. If you let them get demerits or go a class without having something because they couldn't open their locker, that would encourage them to learn that skill. Or, for elementary school students, if you continuously put the things in their hands or in their backpack for them that they need to take home to study, and you just put it in their backpack every day, here's your spelling book, put it in their backpack, and you don't put any of the onus on them that you need to go to your desk, grab your spelling book, it's Thursday, you have a test tomorrow, put it in your own backpack. That is enabling them to not be responsible. And then by the time they're in 8th grade, they're going to expect their teacher to put their spelling book in their backpack every Thursday night so they can go home and study on Friday. Some other things, one thing, because I teach high school math, I have for all of my years, is telling them things that they can easily look up in the book. So one thing, often students ask me, what's the formula for area of a circle? And I say, I'm not going to tell you, it's in your book. There's no reason why, as a teacher, we teach them and we teach them their formulas. But by the time they're in high school and Algebra 1 and advanced math and so forth, you don't need to be telling them every day what the formula for area of a circle is. So if they can look it up in their book, have them look it up in their book, because this is what I made a mistake my very first year, is I was just so eager to help them and I was so excited whenever they would ask me a question, and I quickly realized these kids don't know any of their formulas. They don't have them memorized. And all they do is, I don't know how this, what is this formula? And I would just tell them. And then it really hurt me at the end of the year when they were taking their finals exams and they're asking me silly formulas that they should have had memorized. As well as when a student has a question, we have to use a lot of a lot of discretion in answering the question, and only giving them the part to lead them to the answer and not giving them the answer fully. So I guess that would be point number 2. So number 1, I said, don't do for a student what he can do for himself, whether it's write down his homework assignment and take it home. Now, of course, if a parent asks you for that homework assignment to keep their student accountable, you should always communicate with parents. You should always give parents what they want. I'm not of the persuasion that if a parent asks me when the due date for this or what did they get on that, I am not one to say, look on GradeLink and figure it out. I'm not one personally. I know there are other teachers. That's not my strategy. There are teammates, there are co-teachers. We should give parents anything they ask for. But if a student asks you, you should make them work for it before they get it. So number 1, don't do for a student what they can do for themselves. Number 2, always use discretion in leading and answering questions. Lead them to the answer. Don't give them the answer. So for example, if a student were to ask you, what's the difference between a theory and a law? Now, I just recently taught that today, or we reviewed that today in Earth Science. I will ask them these questions. What is the definition of theory? What's the definition of a law? And help to draw them to the conclusion of what's the difference between them. And I had a student say, well, a 7th grader, it's their first time answering a chapter review. I don't know, where do I find these answers? Well, if it's a chapter review, chances are good it's going to be somewhere in the chapter, but where do I look? Well, anywhere in the chapter, probably in your notes, because I have told you all of these things. So point them in the right direction, but don't just be so quick to tell them what the answer is, especially in math as well. When they ask for help for something, as I just previously said, I never tell them formulas. So I always ask, what's the formula for this? Okay. And then I help them to set it up and to substitute in, but I always make them work a little bit so that they're not so dependent upon me. As I tell you, my first year, I learned this the hard way. When I would give a math assignment, okay, go ahead and begin your assignment. And then automatically number 1. And then the same student would ask for number 2 and help with number 3. And it got to the point where I realized they're not even reading the question. They just want me to do all the work on the board so they can get the sweet reward of the answer. And the Bible does tell us the desire accomplishes sweet to the soul. There is a reward in getting work done and doing it right for yourself. So don't be so quick to just give them the answer. Lead them to find the answer in that direction. And I know that there are many reasons why we do this. One is it's simpler. Instead of having them go through this whole ordeal of, I can't find it in the book. And as I said, we want them to succeed and we want them to do well. And it might be just easier to tell them, here's the answer or here's the formula, but we need to make them work for it. Just as if you have a child, and I know mine's only 17 weeks old and she's really literally dependent upon me for everything. But as she gets older, I'm sure there'll be times when I'm going to want her to put her shoes on for herself and want to leave the house right away. And it'll be easier for me just to put it on for her. But if I do that, she's not going to learn the fine motor skills of putting on her shoes or getting ready to leave the house. And of course, she's so cute and cuddly right now, I could just carry her forever. But if I continue to do that everywhere she goes for the next, 5 years, she's going to be a 5-year-old going to kindergarten and she can't walk. So we see the point. I know that's an exaggerated example, but that's why we need to make sure we lead students to where they need to get to. Don't just tell them the answers. Never do for a student what they can do for themselves. And then be an example of helping them. Show them or explain to them why you are not going to let them do something. So for example, where we are right now in the school year, it's the very beginning, and students came and they don't have a pencil or they don't have X, Y, or Z with them that they need for class. I might tell them, you can get your pencil today, but in the future you may not get it. And then you make them sit through a whole class period without a pencil or without a paper or without their book to learn and say, this is why we need to come prepared at school, or class is a lot easier when we have all of our tools with us. So whenever you want to help them but don't, make sure you always explain to them why you're doing it, because sometimes kids don't understand and they might think that you are just being cruel, but we are teachers and every moment is a teaching moment. So if you tell them that this is the due date and they have to turn this in and there's nothing beyond that, and then they come to school and they give you a long story, this is the hard part and it's not the best, but you have to be able to say, no, I'm sorry, I can't accept this, it's late, or it's past due, I told you X, Y, or Z. And so if we do all of these things, it's going to help the student to develop better character habits and to really teach them and learn them. That's not proper grammar. Do not listen to that. It's really going to teach them and help them to learn better life skills, because ultimately we don't teach subjects, we teach students, and our goal is to help them to excel in all areas of life. So I just want to give you little tips of mistakes that I made personally, and I want to help young people and young teachers to not make those mistakes. So I say, number one, don't do for a student what he can do for himself. Number two, don't just give them the answer, lead them to the answer. And number three, always make sure you explain why you're not going to give them the help that they seem that they demand. And I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate you tuning in. If you'd like to hear more or be notified, we're going to do weekly broadcasts. Go ahead and subscribe. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are. Wherever you like to listen to, you can go ahead and subscribe. Thank you and have a great week.